I don't want my future sister-in-law at my wedding because she's jealous of me.
What?
Never done this before, but here we go. This is going to be very long, spanning years, so I hope that's all right. You can call me Shay, 34 female, and my fiance, Jay, 35 male. Jay has 2 siblings. An older sister we'll call Eve, 37 female, and a younger brother we'll call Sed, 33 male. Sed has a fiance as well, who we'll call Nikki, 27 female. By the way, this comes from user Jonathan Anubian, and you can submit your stories on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, for some context, I am autistic. Just enough to be weird, quote unquote, and have issues that need some accommodation, but not enough that people can see it right away during conversations. I am constantly told I don't act autistic, which is a whole other problem in and of itself. I've been friends with Sed and Jay since we were in high school. First with Sed because he was more outgoing, later with Jay because we both shared more interests. I used to go over to their house frequently to play Halo and other games. Occasionally their older sister would be there, but at the time she was a much lauded university student and had no time for her brothers, let alone some random nerd tomboy. During one Halloween, Jay asked if I wanted to go to an amusement park with him because he knew I loved Halloween, dressing up, and amusement parks. I did not know this was supposed to be a date.
Yep, that's a date.
Well, we knew.
That's a date, baby
Right
girl.
away, baby girl, baby G. I was very dense back then and had very low self-esteem. I didn't think anyone was interested in me like that, and Jay was far too shy to correct me. Fast forward out of school, and I had lost contact with them for a bit due to life getting in the way. I had a couple of boyfriends, but it never went anywhere. I bumped into Jay one day, and he asked me if I wanted to hang out like old times. So I go over to his apartment, and we play games, have some snacks, and it is a blast. But here's the thing. Jay's sister is also there. She was renting out the second bedroom of the apartment while working nearby to pay for her university courses. She didn't say much to me at the time, and back then even tried to help me with a difficult situation with my school. It wasn't much, just going over an essay to try and figure out why the teacher wouldn't accept it, but it was nice. Jay asked me to hang out a couple more times before finally confessing that he'd liked me since high school, but wanted to have a car, a stable job, and place to live before he asked me out properly.
Whoa.
Guys,
he was like,
whoa.
I wanna be the man that you deserve.
I would like to be
I love that.
I'd like to be a dreamy man McDreamboat before I ask you out. He wanted me to be his girlfriend. Of course I said yes, considering the title of this post, LOL. Fast forward, Jay and I are living together, have been for a while now. His sister had moved out and everything seemed fine. That's when I find out she's telling everyone I'm a gold digger and a loose woman behind my back.
What a weird term.
She's
Like,
a loose woman. She's on the loose?
I'd
Who
be
let
like,
her
who
out?
you? If anyone ever came up to me and they were like, "Oh, have you heard about so and so? They're a loose woman." I'd be like, "Are you from the 1800s? What's going on here?"
Trying to break me and Jay up? Jay is a welder. He is not made of money, and neither are his parents. I do live on disability, but that's because of a car crash that wrecked my spine when I was 16. I live in pain every day of my life, and even if I could work, no one wanted to hire the autistic girl. This community is pretty insular and judgmental. I've had jobs before, but they never ended well. Jay and I are happy with our arrangement. I stay at home to clean, cook, and make handcrafts to sell while he goes to work. He's never complained about it, and even if he had, that's between myself and him. Things go quiet for a while. His sister has moved over 7 hours away and never contacts her brothers. We only see her maybe twice a year because she's a teacher, and it's hard to get from where she's living back to here. For the most part, things are fine. I'm polite and try not to get into many conversations with her. My biggest issue with her at the time is how she would talk over my fiance. He used to have a bad stutter, but it's gotten much better over the years. Maybe because I don't talk over him and actually want to hear what he has to say. She criticizes everything he does, berates him, and humiliates him in front of their family, which certainly wouldn't help a stutter. She never lets him formulate a response and hammers at his confidence until my brilliant fiance is so checked out he just starts reading on his phone and not engaging in any conversations. But it's only twice a year, so I it up and am polite, like how an adult should act. Fast forward to about 2 years ago. Sed meets Nikki and we're introduced. We have very similar tastes, very similar attitudes, and we click immediately. It's like having another sister suddenly, and it's Awesome. Future mother-in-law suggests that the three girls get to know each other better and go to the big city on a girls' day.
Does this not sound like they're about to go to the big city?
Ooh, we're about to take a wagon into town.
Into town.
A
Oh,
big
boy.
trip into the city. We're going to get some salt water.
We've been living on the
saltwater
prairie.
taffy.
We're about to go to Independence City and eat some taffy and a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Oh, wow. For 3 pennies. I'm not really okay with it, but since Nikki will be there to commensurate with I think it'll be fine. It was not fine. Eve was commanding, doesn't listen, ignores our every plea to slow down or let us stop for a rest, refuses to follow the map, and criticizes everything we suggest doing. In the end, we only get to do a fifth of what we wanted. And since Eve and her mother bullied us into using Eve's car, we would be stranded if we didn't keep up. It all comes to a head when we sit down at a restaurant to eat and Eve learns that Nikki is 10 years younger than her. Suddenly, everything Nikki has said, no matter how logical or reasonable, is completely disregarded. I can see Nikki getting more and more upset as the day wears on, so I suggest going to a shop where we can grab some teddy bears. We're both collectors.
They're teddy bear collectors? I mean, I guess
That
you know,
feels like the most Little House on the Prairie thing we've read so
that's
far.
what I'm saying.
They're collecting teddy bears in town?
In town.
Where do you even do that?
Because, like,
Out
you
on
know,
a whim.
people do, like,
Find some
Swishables
teddy
now,
bears.
but teddy bear collectors is really specific.
So, of course, this teddy bear collecting makes Eve roll her eyes, because clearly such childish delights are beneath her. This woman teaches children 6 to 8 years old. Fast forward further, and Cedric asks Nikki to marry him. We're excited because we'll actually be sisters in the near future, and the gates of the bad place have been opened.
Oh.
Suddenly, Eve texts our fiancés, her younger brothers, this huge, long thing about how I am an evil, manipulative person who made Nikki hate her because Nikki is too young to have her own agency even though she's been working and living on her own since she was 16. How her brothers never messaged her. She never messaged them even once in all the years I've known them, and how her life is falling apart. The inflammatory things she said about me and Nikki were so bad that when I showed my uninvolved friend without context, she asked if Eve was Jay's toxic ex-girlfriend. Yes. She's giving off super clear vibes here. Like, what is going on here?
I don't like it. Something's fishy.
Yeah, something is afoot. Nikki and I knew that Eve wouldn't listen to us, so we went to speak to our future in-laws to resolve the issue calmly. But Eve had gotten there first, crying on the phone to her mother and blaming everything on me. During that talk, neither Nikki or I could get a word in edgewise, and I went from being described as a mastermind to autistic enough to be considered a child more times than I can count. Jay's father even shouted over me to shut me up. Jay's dad is 6'5" and broad-shouldered. He is a massive man. While I am 5'4", and while broad-shouldered, I am still a fairly small woman. Having a man like that yell down at me is terrifying.
Just like a man yelling in general.
Yeah, anyone yelling is scary, honestly.
Icky.
Ever since then, Jay's mom has been trying to force his sister into every part of our wedding. She tried to get her to be my maid of honor, but Nikki had already been chosen. Then she tried to make her a groomsman. No, what the F. And then as the planner for our engagement party. She didn't even show up, and it ended up being a party for mother-in-law's friends instead. Eve even told myself and Nikki that she blocked us on Facebook for her own mental health, because apparently seeing 2 happy women who would be brides before her is just too much. At this point, I have cut all contact with Eve, not that I had any to begin with, and refuse to go over to Jay's parents' house. She is still invited to the wedding, but I really don't want her there. So, am I an a-hole for not wanting her to be at my wedding where she'll make it all about her and potentially cause a scene? Let me know.
I don't think you're the a-hole.
No.
I think that she's been causing scenes, and she's made it very clear that she does not like you. Why would she even want to go to the wedding?
You're inviting someone to the wedding who so obviously will be making the wedding about them.
Yeah.
They're going to try their hardest to make this day and their presence at your wedding about them.
Don't invite her.
Quick edit, something I forgot to add. Jay and I have been together for 10 years now. He helped me through 2 years of therapy and medication for depression, anxiety, and childhood trauma relating to being abused and exploited from the ages of 4 to 12. He is my rock and my safe harbor. I love him dearly, the giant dork. And second edit, Nikki said I could mention this. Mother-in-law took photos of Nikki's wedding dress while we were at the bridal shop. Her wedding is 6 months after mine, and then sent those photos to a friend of hers and Eve without permission. Mother-in-law offered to keep the dress at her house, but that trust was already broken once, so Nikki's wedding dress is now safely at my place.
Smart.
Yes. Very smart. And we have an update. Well, let's get into it. If anyone is still reading, the wedding happened, and although Eve was there, she was practically a mute. So I think multiple people told her to keep out of the way.
Good.
Thank goodness. My mom also told me that she had to drive Jay and Cedric's mom, now my mother-in-law, to the venue. Since they were alone in the car for 20 minutes or so, she was able to explain to Jay's mom exactly how horrible Eve had been to me and Nikki.
Shout out to your mom.
Shout out to the great explainer, and also shout out to the fact, a rock fact, that you can find full episodes with stories like this. All you have to do is search OK Storytime on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. So the only bad quote-unquote thing that happened was someone the photographer to include Eve in more photos than I wanted. But I have enough of them with just myself, Jay, and the other assorted family members that it's mostly fine. Other than that, the day went off without a hitch. I'm still going low to no contact in that I refuse to go over to their house, but I will go out to restaurants or out to a public place with them. Nikki is in the same boat as me, so we've decided to be buddies and sit next to each other between Jay and Zed, so we'll feel more comfortable. And that's the end of that story.
Oh, and
Hey,
they're
you
living
know.
happily on the prairie
Here we go.
for the
Little
rest of their days.
happy prairie folk.
Yeah.